Hello and welcome back to Cycle Sync with G. Note the name change. Kitchen Sink was originally a recipe book full of cycle syncing recipes, which I'm still drip feeding into my website. But right now, I've just finished a PT course, which I am soon to submit and be fully qualified. And I am really enjoying the holistic side of cycle syncing. So I have changed the name, much better for SEO too, from Kitchen Sink to Cycle Sync. Maybe there's a recipe book in the future, but right now it is Cycle Sync with G. And today, this is a topic I've actually wanted to talk about and address for quite a long time. So I just wanted to round up the science that we have already and the benefits of ice baths and cold water exposure and what we know and how it can impact men and women differently. There are many, many benefits to cold water exposure. You know, what is a gym right now without an ice bath and a sauna and that? But there's also a lot to say out there that what's better about ice baths than active recovery, foam rolling, cooling down on an ergometer. Are ice baths just a fad? So I'm going to start with the reasons why ice baths are actually used. The main reason is to expedite the recovery process, basically. Ice baths and cold water exposure has been known to speed up recovery, and if you're an athlete and you're training regularly, if you can decrease the amount of time that you need to rest and recover so that you can get back into training, essentially making more gains and getting further exponentially in the future, it's highly beneficial. So that's the number one benefit, is to reduce muscle soreness and speed up recovery. A second benefit is this dopamine release that we get, the kind of high, great feeling. This is great for mental health and clarity and energy boosting, and also in general your ability to regulate your glucose, your blood glucose, and tap into fat stores as well. So there's lots of very well-known benefits of ice baths. I'm going to give you some science here on the difference between men and women, because a lot of the benchmarks and the base level that everyone advises or recommends is based on, their experience or what has been beneficial in studies, mostly men. And just one simple thing that we know about the menstrual cycle is that our body temperature fluctuates throughout the cycle. For example, in the luteal phase, your body temperature is naturally a lot higher, so you're going to be a lot more sensitive to the cold. So an ice bath is going to feel a lot colder in your luteal phase, for example. So I guess we'll start with some of the science on women and female thermoregulation. So looking at this study here, which looked at the difference in cold perception and shivering upon gradual cold exposure between men and women. Overall, what this study found and showed, which you can see very clearly from these graphs here, that female, which is the red line, tolerance to their cold is a lot lower. Even from the very beginning, at 24 degrees, female's body temperature is lower. You'll see that women will tend to drop at a more rapid speed, always maintain lower than men. And how this relates to ice baths and cold water exposure is that if you and your male friend or your boyfriend get into the same ice bath, the woman, you, are gonna feel that cold a lot more than he is. Another thing is that women started shivering sooner than men, and this is a response of the sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight or stress response. This is one kind of drawback I guess I have about ice bathing, is that if you are in for too long or it is too cold, it can be a stressor for women. We know that stress raises cortisol. If you are actually already stressed and in a stressful job or just feeling lots of pressure and feeling stressed and everything, adding another stressor is potentially not the best idea. And for female hormones, elevated cortisol, and especially chronically elevated cortisol, is going to have an impact in the long run. But with this increase in metabolism, this also means that women will get better resting blood glucose levels in response to the cold water exposure than men do. There is also an increase in adiponectin, which is the protein hormone from adipose cells, so fat cells, which when we have an increase in adiponectin, we have a greater ability to burn visceral fat and change body composition. But going back to that hormonal side of things, and what I really kind of want to hit home, going back to what I said in the beginning about finding your sweet spot and what works best for you, the amount of time. The main thing just to caution is that if you are comparing yourself to a male or going in for too long, this stress response is what we ultimately want to prevent. Our bodies will perceive an ice bath as a greater stressor than a man would, and maybe even a man wouldn't, leading to elevated cortisol, which can impact menstrual cycle regularity and your recovery and your energy levels, like I found. Again, on hormones, as we know and as I mentioned briefly in the beginning, is in the luteal phase, your body temperature is naturally higher. So when you get in an ice bath in your luteal phase, that shock response that takes your breath away is going to be a lot higher because you're already warmer. So that ice bath is going to feel colder. The progesterone also means that your body's less tolerant to the cold. So that stress response might feel more intense in that phase. So I'd either not ice bath and do active recovery instead in your luteal phase, like stretching, go for a walk, something like that, or make it really, really fast. In contrast, in the follicular phase, so before ovulation, where estrogen levels are rising or they're naturally higher, this may help blunt the stress response. You've got higher pain tolerance when your estrogen is high. There's a lot of things in your favor. Recovery is naturally also higher in this phase too, but in general, you're a bit more bulletproof. So if you're going to ice bath, this is going to be the phase. So in summary, how this looks for women: cool water versus really, really cold water. So you might be jumping in. A cold shower will have the same effect on you as a ice bath might do on a man. Another thing to remember is the menstrual cycle phase has an impact and affects your cold sensitivity. So luteal phase, you're going to feel the cold a lot more than in your follicular phase. So your follicular phase would be the phase to potentially jump in a cold ice bath for not too long, especially if you haven't done it regularly or you don't do it at all, over your luteal phase. So before your period, after you've ovulated. Because we do get colder sooner and we will shiver faster, the metabolism will kick in and kickstart and elevate a lot sooner than it would for men, which I guess is a good thing, but just does clarify the fact that you don't need to stay in as long and you don't need to go as cold. The increase in adiponectin, which increases the ability to burn visceral fat and change body composition, is also elevated. And in general, how ice baths look for women is basically women don't need to stay in as long as men do. Find your sweet spot. It doesn't need to be 2 degrees, 0 degrees, friggin' freezing cold. Now, this big topic I want to get onto of ice baths after strength training. And what they say here, the use of cold water exposure as a regular post-exercise recovery strategy should be reconsidered. So the point in ice baths is to reduce inflammation, to reduce that muscle soreness so that you can get back into training faster. But this study, tested on men, but still will apply, looked at 2 groups that both did the exact same strength training program for 12 weeks. Both tested their strength at the beginning of the study and at the end of the study, so 12 weeks after. One group performed active recovery after their strength session, so 10 minutes of light cycling on an ergometer. The other group, within 5 minutes of finishing each strength training session, they were exposed to 10-degree water for 10 minutes, waist down. This was a lower body strength program, so they were just testing leg strength and doing all the interventions on the lower body. Over this 12-week program, you can see very clearly that despite them starting at the exact same strength, by the end of the 12 weeks, the cold water immersion group has a lot lower strength than the active recovery group. This does make biological sense because if you think about what an ice bath is going to do, it's going to constrict your blood vessels and restrict blood flow to the muscles. After you finish training, you need blood flow, amino acids and nutrients and oxygen and all sorts back into the muscles that you have just trained, broken. So constricting the blood vessels is restricting the blood flow of oxygen and nutrients to the muscles, preventing muscle growth, and especially in that crucial period straight after training, especially for women, super important to get. This is separate from men and this isn't part of this study, but super important for women to get about 30 grams of leucine-rich high quality protein within 30 to 45 minutes after strength training, straight to those muscles, and that's what's going to repair and prevent this energy slump later. So if you're looking to improve your strength gains, cold water plunge after strength training is definitely not the one. But this doesn't mean don't ice bath, just don't do it straight after your strength training. Maybe on different days, you ice bath on your recovery day or rest day. So all in all, summary of this is don't jump in the ice bath straight after strength training. Get protein in, especially for women. And an active recovery is a much better technique by actually increasing the blood flow to the muscles. I'd love to hear what you want to know about. That was ice baths, specifically for women, and also touching on ice baths in general. Hope that's helpful. Please leave any questions and comments in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you want to know, especially in the kind of fitness realm. I'll be doing a lot more of these hormone related videos, and I hope that was helpful.